So Augustine's with us very shortly, but first she's big, she's beautiful, and she's become an iconic symbol the world over. But did you know that the Statue of Liberty has a little sister? Not only that, but she lives in fact here in Paris, and she's just moved house, as William Hildebrand reports.
On Monday, the Musée d'Orsay's impressive collection of French statues welcomed its newest member, the Statue of Liberty's little sister. But at 400 kilograms of bronze and nearly 3 meters tall, this lady was anything but little.
We're having trouble getting it through. It's a bit too long, so we are going to have to stand it up.
Moving in a statue and welcoming in an icon.
We can no longer look at this work on just an artistic level. That is very clear. It has become a real symbol.
Planted in the middle of New York Harbor, sometimes it's easy to forget that the Statue of Liberty has French origins. This American symbol was conceived by sculptor Frédéric Bartholdi, who worked with designer Gustave Eiffel. It was a colossal project made in France, and in 1886 it was officially unveiled in the United States, base and all standing 93 meters, a bit more than its little sister.
I think it's still quite innovative to see a statue like this that is very important. A symbol for liberty, for immigration, the construction of America, and for it to be here in the most beautiful museum in Paris.
Bartholdi originally imagined this statue as a lighthouse, so the museum has decided to use this recreation as a beacon, welcoming visitors as they come in.
It will be set down in just a few moments, and I'm sure everyone will admit that we were eagerly awaiting the arrival of the Statue of Liberty.
Musée d'Orsay might not be part of New York, but it seems like Little Lady Liberty is fitting right in.
It's a little, but it's a good statue, isn't it? Now, Thursday, of course, is book day here on France 24. I'm joined, as ever, by our book critic, it's Augustin Trapenard. Good to have you with us once again, Augustin. Today, in fact, we're going back to classics, 2 sequels of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. What on earth is that all about? 2 sequels?
Yes, you know, I tell you what, Stuart, I think summer is the best season to read and read again classics that you loved. And because, you know, you've got all the time that you want, and also because there's nothing better than experiencing, you know, again, the pleasure of reading a book you've already read and liked. And even better, in my opinion, is to read a sequel or a spin-off, because it rings a bell, but there's also a little twist, you know. Now, if there is one author that has been, you know, spinned off and mashed up, it has to be Jane Austen. Jane Austen, I'm thinking of all the sequels of her 1813 masterpiece, Pride and Prejudice, of course, on film, on TV, but also in books. You know, think Bridget Jones's Diary by Helen Fielding, which was a rewriting of Pride and Prejudice. And today I brought 2 recent sequels of Pride and Prejudice, and the first one is a mystery novel by a mystery queen in England, P.D. James. Has just been released here in France. The title of the book is Death Comes to Pemberley. And guess what? They made a teaser for this book, Stuart. Just take a listen.
Fantastic.
One of our most admired mystery writers, P.D. James, draws the characters of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice into a delicious tale of murder and emotional mayhem. Death Comes to Pemberley. Dear reader, you will love it.
No, I say, Augustin, how wonderful. I mean, could that be more British?
Don't be so touchy, Stuart. You know, it was meant for an American audience, so it has to be a little cliche. But it's exactly what I like about this book, actually. You know, I think you couldn't dream of a better sequel than this book written by this great author, P.D. James. A book that is somewhere, you know, between the parody, between the tribute, and also the pure mystery, you know, in P.D. James's very own fashion. Basically, it starts 6 years after the end of Pride and Prejudice, and Elizabeth and Darcy are happily married at last. fast, a little boring in my opinion, and they live together in beautiful Pemberley, you know, the estate. But one fine night, Elizabeth's little sister, the disgraced Lydia, storms back into their life, and she claims that her husband Wickham, may be dead, as a matter of fact. So something is rotten in the estate of Pemberley. You don't know what. Is he really dead? Has someone been killed? Who done it? Why done it? I have to say, I love this book, Stuart, because you can feel, you know, all the fun that P.D. James had while writing this book. And, you know, P.D. James has nothing to prove now. She's 91 years old. She wrote 20 bestsellers, international bestsellers. And I love the way, you know, she mimics Jane Austen's language, but also her irony, the wit also of her novels. I think it's a great tribute that is paid to Jane Austen, but also to British literature.
Excellent. Sounds good fun anyway. What about the other book then? Colin McCulloch, the Australian author of The Independence of Miss Mary Bennet. It's also one of Jane Austen's great-granddaughters, isn't she?
I think she might be, actually. You know, she's famous, this Australian author, Colin McCulloch. She's famous for her novel The Thornbirds, that was adapted, you know, into a famous TV miniseries. Now, she wrote this Pride and Prejudice sequel when she was 71. So there's a little bit of this P.D. James syndrome, you know, the very old author who pays tribute to her favourite novelist and to her favourite book, and that happens to be, again, Pride and Prejudice. Now, this book, The Independence of Miss Mary Bennet, is quite different because the plot starts 20 years to it after the end of Pride and Prejudice, and things have changed. Darcy and Elizabeth are now an old and an odd couple. Elizabeth's sister Jane is a little flighty, not to mention the other sisters. One of them has a drinking problem. The only one the only sister, Bennet's sister, who's changed in a good way is Miss Mary. And who remembers Miss Mary in Jane Austen's book? You know, she was this weird, bookish, moralizing, patronizing, and ugly little girl. Well, guess what? Now, 20 years later, she's beautiful and brilliant, and she's independent and witty.
Like all the great Jane Austen heroines.
That's right, and that's what I like about this book, you know, by Colin McCulloch, is that she uses a neglected character of Pride and Prejudice and she turns it into a perfect copy of Elizabeth Bennet, the heroine of Pride and Prejudice. Except that we're 20 years later, so her destiny will be totally different. Guess what? I'll let you guess. She could travel all around England. She could be independent enough to become a writer.
Yeah. What else? Could she get married, perhaps? I mean, that's what always happens in Jane Austen novels.
She could. I'm not telling you the end of the novel, Stuart. The only thing I can say is, that, which is, in my opinion, quite fascinating, that it remains a Pride and Prejudice sequel and spin-off in a way. And you can see the parallel between the two book covers, which are basically the same. I'm very much interested, you know, in the marketing of a book, because it shows, you know, the pleasure of rereading a classic, and the destiny maybe of a classic is to be reread again and again, to be reimagined, to be loved forever.
Excellent. As is Augustin, of course, who's here every week with our book reviews here on France 24. Just to remind you what those two books are. Pride and Prejudice spin-offs, Death Comes to Pemberley by the British crime queen P.D. James, and The Independence of Miss Mary Bennet by Australian writer Colin McCulloch. That is Augustin's pick of the week, and he will be back same time, same place, same channel. France 24 this time next week. Augustin, thank you very much.
Thanks.
That's the news from us then. The latest coming up very shortly. Jean is here after the break.